What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Back again for another episode of That's Right, I Said It, where I do say a lot of things that people would be scared to talk about on a public platform like YouTube. Specifically, what we're talking about is Kratom. Kratom use, specifically tapering down off of Kratom. And it's interesting because this is one of those subjects where you truly get a mixed bag of opinions and comments on it. There's this NA and AA culture of folks that will end up on these videos and drag people like us through the coals for even considering still taking Kratom. A lot of folks from that culture feel like you can't take any drug. If you take any drug, that's a slippery slope for you. Therefore, you shouldn't do it, and you will end up abusing the drug again. I personally do not necessarily subscribe to that. Kratom for me has been a godsend in a lot of ways. The MIT 45s became a slippery slope for me. When I was taking the Kratom powder, that helped me a lot with some actual mental health issues that I've struggled with for a lot of my life. And I just want to be real about that, and although I've never been diagnosed as, clinically depressed or anything like that, it's partially because I've never been to the doctor for it. But depression and going through funks and things like that is something that I have dealt with in my past, and Kratom is something that really helped to curb that about my personality. And a lot of people will say, if you have an addictive, a lot of people call it an addictive personality. If you have an addictive personality, it's a slippery slope for you. You're unable to control drug use whatsoever. So don't even try. And that's the mixed bag of opinions that you'll get on this. And I've already had a couple of people jump on my video and say some pretty hateful things, like grow up. That was one of them. And I'm not mad. I have pretty thick skin when it comes to stuff like that. But it did kind of hurt my feelings for a second. But anyway, let me jump back on where I'm at with my Kratom use. So if for any of you have not watched my previous videos, I am 22 days off of the MIT 45s. I was taking roughly about 1.5 to 2 of those per day. The Mitragina compound, the alkaloid that is in the MIT 45s, is significantly higher than it is in the Kratom powder. So unfortunately, it serves to really increase your tolerance to the Kratom alkaloid a lot. And what people are finding is that they're taking these MITs, which might I add are extremely expensive, by the way. They're taking these MITs, and then what it's doing is increasing their tolerance to a point where they become very addicted to them. And then when they finally get to a point where, wow, I'm spending 30, 40 bucks a day on Kratom, I gotta stop doing this. And then they make an effort to go off of them. Well, then they're in full-on pause. They're in full-on opiate withdrawals because the amount of the alkaloid that was actually in the MITs. So then people feel stuck. And I just want to say, before I ever found the Kratom extracts, I was good with my Kratom use. And there's one guy that I've watched a lot of his videos that I want to reference him a little bit. If you've ended up on my video, you've likely probably seen some of this guy's videos. His channel's called Joey Talks. And this guy goes really in depth about his process of learning how to use Kratom properly, learning how to control it, not abuse it. And he's talked about the fact that, you know, a lot of it has just come through trial and error. And he's gone through, you know, points where he's taking upwards of 25, 30 grams of Kratom powder per day. And he's learned that if you get to a point, your body gets accustomed to that, and then the Kratom doesn't have the same effect on you as it did before. So then you're constantly, you know, increasing your tolerance, having to take more and more and more to get the same effect that you were before. So now, by example, you may have to take 20 grams in one day to get the same effect that a year ago you were taking 10 grams to receive. So it's one of those things where your body constantly increases its own tolerance for Kratom if you continue taking it and for a long extended period of time. And he talks about the importance of tapering off of it from time to time. He talks about using, you know, stem and vein, and then some things that you can do to help with any minor withdrawals that you might be experiencing when you go to taper off of the Kratom and things like that. And a lot of the stuff is really, really interesting and really, really helpful. A lot of the stuff he talks about. I will say, you know, if he talked about the fact that after a certain period of time taking it, he'll regularly end up on 20, 25 grams of Kratom per day. And that's where people lose me. And, you know, I have people jump in my comments and say, well, you can't control it, the best thing to do. What? No, okay. Nobody has specifically said this. But I've had a couple of people to indicate that, why are you preaching about Kratom? You're still taking Kratom. Any amount of Kratom is bad. Basically, you're an idiot. Shut up. Stop doing it. Grow up. That sort of thing. And when people start talking about edging up to 20, 25 grams, 30 grams per day of Kratom, that blows my freaking mind, dude. I've never taken that much Kratom in one day. Never. Even at my highest point, I mean, probably the most Kratom powder I've ever swallowed in one day is maybe 14, 15 grams. And, you know, to me, that was a lot. And so, you know, even Joey Talks, you know, which I have a lot of respect for that guy and what he's doing with his channel. And he's kind of an ambassador for Kratom use and, you know, learning how to use it responsibly, to where you don't get to a point where you're abusing the drug all the time. And he's really good about that. But even he loses me when he goes to start talking about, you know, working yourself up to 20, 25 grams of Kratom per day. And then when he gets to that point, he'll either switch to like the stem and vein, or he'll start a very slow taper, so that he can, you know, bring his tolerance back down and bring himself kind of back down to ground zero, to where when you start taking the Kratom again, you're getting the full effects of it, and you're not just taking it just to avoid the withdrawals anymore. You're actually getting the effects that you originally loved Kratom for. And all of those things are, you know, awesome things that he's talking about. But I think it is truly, I think there is a culture of people who are just going to say, you can't take the Kratom. It's a slippery slope for you if you have a past history with drug addiction, and especially if it's a past history of abusing opiates. Kratom is a slippery slope. It's bad news 100% of the time. Don't take it. There's a culture of people that take that approach, and there's a culture of people who, you know, if you can learn to control it, it can be helpful to you, and it can be helpful to your mood. It can be helpful to, you know, helping with depression and anxiety, and, you know, increase in energy and things like that. But what you don't want to do is escalate it to the point where you're abusing it, and then the Kratom begins to have the opposite effect of what it was intended to have. You intend to have it to be a mood booster, to give you some energy, to help you be a little bit more sociable and talkative, things like that. And if you get to the point where you're taking so much that it just makes you want to lay down and fall asleep, which is kind of what Joey Talks was referring to, then you need to take a few steps back, obviously. And that's kind of what he talks about and what he preaches about. For me, other than my experience with the MITs and just getting blindsided by how much kratom alkaloid those things had in them, that got me hooked, and that increased my tolerance to a point where when I started coming off of those and taking just the kratom powder, I was going through withdrawals, because there's no way I was about to take enough kratom powder during the day to equal the alkaloid that was in those MITs, because it had increased my my tolerance so very much. So I'm just now 2-3 weeks off of the MITs. I'm starting to settle in again now. And I do want to report that yesterday I only took 8 grams of kratom powder, and actually slept pretty well too. I did take a melatonin, well, let me back up. I took my last dose of kratom, which was 5 capsules, so that's roughly 3.5, 4 grams, something like that. Took my last dosage probably around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening. Went into the bedroom to lay down and kind of relax and watch some TV around 9 o'clock. I took a melatonin at that time. Took it about 30-45 minutes to kind of set in. Slept really, really nicely for about 3 or 4 hours. Woke up about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And at that point, I drank myself a chamomile tea. I made myself a chamomile tea. Watched TV for about 30 minutes, probably by about 3:30, 4 o'clock. Fell back to sleep and slept all the way until my alarm went off, basically. 2 weeks ago, just barely coming off of the MIT, wouldn't have been able to do that. The chamomile tea didn't help. The melatonin wasn't really helping, because I was in full on, post-acute withdrawals. They weren't as bad as they could have been had I not been taking kratom powder and supplementing with kratom powder. But even with the kratom powder, I was still going through post-acute withdrawals, simply because of how much, and I could beat a dead horse about this all day, how much alkaloid is in the MIT 45. So I was actually, I actually only took just a little over 8 grams of kratom powder yesterday, and I was able to sleep with just some natural, like some melatonin, drank a small chamomile tea throughout the night, and my sleep was good. So I think I'm officially to the point now where I'm completely past any, post-acute withdrawals associated with coming off of the MIT 45s. And, I'm one of those people that when I was in my 20s, I absolutely 100% was not ready for the euphoria and the addiction that Vicodin and Percocet and things like that caused in my life. Then after that, when I came off of that, it was Adderall. And I, was abusing Adderall. I was snorting Adderall. Yes, snorting Adderall up my nose with a tiny straw about this big. I didn't do that all the time, but I did do that, kind of on and off for maybe about a year or two. I mean, you might as well be doing cocaine, if you're doing that, which did that a few times as well. Not that was never a big thing for me. I literally can count on one hand the number of times I've done cocaine, but not that I'm sitting on any high horse, because like I said, I abused Adderall and snorted it up my nose when it was actually a prescription that a doctor was giving me. So I'm not on a high horse about, well, I've never done cocaine. Well, you might as well have. And I abused that for a while, and I've done a little, smoking marijuana. I've done that. Drinking has never been a big thing for me. That's something I did some of when I was younger, and I've shared some stories about my experiences of drinking when I was a younger, like teenager and younger man. Um, as I've gotten older, I haven't done nearly as much of that. And it's simply because that's before I found opiates. That's before I found those other things that I prefer. I prefer the euphoria. I prefer the sense of well-being that, like, a slight stimulant or a euphoric feeling from, an opiate or something similar like Kratom gives you. That's what I prefer. I'm that type of person. I know people, specifically my wife, who she prefers an alcohol buzz. Does she drink a lot of alcohol? No. She's a very responsible person. I've been married to this woman for 10 years, and I may have one time, maybe twice, seen her to where I would say, oh, she's kind of drunk. But she never gets that way. She's always responsible about it. This woman, earns a salary of, probably almost $100,000 a year. She's very, very successful, and very successful at being a mother and a wife as well. So she's obviously a person who has any drug use that she does under control, but she prefers an alcohol buzz. I do not prefer an alcohol buzz. I might drink once a week, and that's on Saturday night when I'm watching a UFC or sitting around, in the hot tub or whatever, and I'll have a couple of drinks. Outside of that, it's just not something I prefer to do, so I very rarely ever do it. I kind of got off track there, but anyway, point being, at this point, I'm down to 8 grams of Kratom powder. Tonight, it's going to be 7 something because I'm already on track. Today, at this point, I've only taken slightly over 3 grams of Kratom today, and it's 12:30, going on 1 o'clock right now. I feel pretty good. I had a couple of moments this morning where I was like, well, sure wish I had a nice pick-me-up, but that's part of it. And when you're tapering down, you're gonna have some experiences like that. I can handle that stuff. The stuff I can't handle is the post-acute withdrawals that happen at night. I just can't do the post-acute withdrawals. I can't stand laying there at night, looking at the ceiling, rolling over, feeling that feeling in my chest, and restless legs, and just all these other things that come along with it. I just can't do those things. I can, but I really hate doing them. I do not prefer doing them. So I try to avoid that at all possible. So if you're on the MITs and you're feeling stuck, do not feel stuck. It gets better. Exercise, take vitamins, vitamin C. If you can do a cold turkey, do a cold turkey. If you don't have a lot of responsibility and you can kind of strap yourself in and do a cold turkey withdrawal, you can do it. If that's not a place that you're at in your life right now, and I've talked about this at length on my previous videos, not everyone is at a point in their life where they can pull off a cold turkey withdrawal. I would say, in fact, more people than not are not at a place like that in their lives at this point. Me included. I have way too much responsibility to be doing a cold turkey withdrawal from anything right now, which is why I'm tapering. I have in my past done a cold turkey withdrawal, not only from Percocets and Vicodins in my 20s, which is over 20 years ago, but I also did a cold turkey withdrawal from MIT 45s before. And then I messed around and started taking them again like an idiot after being off of all Kratom products for over a month. I messed around and, well, now I'm off of them, so now I can start taking them. No, I ended up taking the MIT 45s, getting addicted to them again, getting hooked on them. Tolerance goes up, and now here I am, a little over 3 weeks off of them again. But this time, I did what I feel like was a smarter move, and I didn't go cold turkey. I did just did a taper method, and when I first came off the MIT 45s, I was taking anywhere from 15 to 17 grams of it, and now I'm down to 8 grams. So that should show you there that it is doable. The taper does help. It gets to a point where after tapering down to a certain amount, you get to a point where when you take it down a gram and a half every 3 or 4 days, you don't really have a lot of ill effects associated with it once you get over the initial post-acute withdrawals of coming off of the MIT 45. Once you get past that, after the first week and a half, 2 weeks, and then you kind of start chopping down your kratom powder intake, it's not really that bad, to be honest with you. And at that point, when most of the acute withdrawals have subsided, you can, do little things to kind of help with any discomfort at night and sleeping and energy and things like that. And I've named some of those: vitamin C, magnesium, chamomile tea, the melatonins, getting in the shower, shivering under the cold water, eating bananas, potassium, helps with like restless legs, things like that. So there are things that you can do, and leave a comment, let me know where you're at. I've had a lot of guys really jump on and tell me where they're at and kind of what they're going through, and it really does help to hear other people's stories about what they're going through. And I had a guy jump on the other day, and I won't mention his name because I don't know how people feel about that, if you want me talking about who you are or whatever, which his username is not his actual name, obviously, but he was telling me, I left a video the other day talking about how some of the things that I talk about on this channel and some of the things that I've done in my past drug addiction that would be really shameful for a lot of people to talk about, that some of those things I talk about on here. And he just reassured me by saying, hey, we've all done some fucked up stuff as drug addicts, and I have too, and that's part of it. And it really, I appreciate your realness about it, and it helps, it makes you feel better to hear somebody else who's gone through. And just hearing that from him made me feel better as well. So it really does help to talk about this stuff, to get it out. You're not the only one in the world that did some fucked up stuff as a drug addict, and especially in active addiction. And I just want to cap this video off by saying this, because I'm about to run out of time here. If you are a person and you're not a person in your life now where you can set yourself a regimen and you can control your kratom intake and your kratom use, don't bother. The best move for you is just come off of it altogether. And I'm sure I'll probably get hate for this too. I can control it. I know I can control it. And I'll wait for the comments. I'm sure I'm going to get some comments on that. You can't control it. That's a slippery slope. Blah, 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 blah. I agree. I agree the MITs and the extracts are a very slippery slope. But I'm a 46-year-old man. I just want something to kind of, I exercise. I eat well. I spend time with my family. I just want something to help with my mood and kind of increase my mood throughout the day, stave off any feelings of feeling down, depression, that sort of thing. And that's kind of what I use it for. And anyway, it is what it is. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, and check back next time, and leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. All right, guys, appreciate you tuning back in. I'll see you next time.